Hello, welcome back to Questioning War, Organizing Resistance. This is Carol Brigay. It's February 11th, 2008, and this is our second hour with Jerry Smith, the author of Weather Warfare, the Military's Plan to Draft Mother Nature. And in the first hour, we covered quite a number of topics, and we were just discussing hurricanes and the ability of different entities to change their direction and diminish and amp up their strength. And we were talking about Hurricane Katrina, and you said that there were a couple of different things that happened that were very anomalous with Katrina. And do you want to tell me a bit more about what you think happened?
Okay. I'm having a train wreck in my head of like 15 different things I want to say all at the same time, so none of them coming out. Let me step back to Elate Technologies.
Okay.
Elate Technologies is a Russian company that was a part of the Soviet Union government, and when the Soviet Union broke up, the bureaucracy reformed itself into a company. And they are a major player in environmental modification today, and they are totally out of the box. They are doing things that the American Meteorological Society says simply cannot be done. It's nonsense. They're not doing this, but they are doing it. One of the things they're doing is they picked up on an idea that the Department of Defense was playing with in the 1950s, which is a ground-based station that ionizes and deionizes the air over the station. Essentially, what that does is that it turns anything that's in the air, these are aerosols, smoke, dust, etc., turns anything in the air into a nucleating particle. This is how cloud seeding works. Is with the most advanced forms of cloud seeding, you use something like silver iodide, which is very, very close chemically to water vapor, so that it attracts water vapor to it, and as the water molecules stick to it, it eventually grows too heavy to stay aloft and falls as a drop of rain. What Elate Technologies has done with this is they have created these ground-based platforms that, by ionizing the air above the platform, they turn anything in the air into a nucleating particle. You don't have to have the cloud seeding aircraft with the fancy equipment and the expensive silver iodide. You can just punch a button, and pretty soon any piece of smoke or dust floating over you has turned into a nucleating particle, and soon the rain falls. The AMS, the American Meteorological Society, says this is complete nonsense. It can't possibly work. Elate Technologies went into northern Mexico, which was in a severe drought, 7, 8 years ago, put in these stations, and today, when they got there, when they arrived, the Mexican reservoirs were at less than 20% capacity. And today, the Mexican reservoirs are at greater than 80% capacity. Now, on the other side of the border in southern Texas, the Texans have been flipping out because ever since Elate Technologies went to work, the moisture that should be coming to Texas is staying in Mexico, and the Texas drought has been exacerbated by it. And this is one of the oldest problems with weather making. With rainmaking, and indeed most Americans are blissfully unaware of the fact that rainmaking has been with us for 130 years. The first patent granted for artificial rainmaking was granted in 1880. Curiously enough, to a U.S. general. The U.S. military had been involved in this quite literally from day one. Now, the reason I mention Elate Technologies in reference to hurricanes is that they claim to have the ability to create hurricanes on demand. That should put a couple of exclamation points behind your eyes. You may remember in 1998, there were massive forest fires burning out of control in Indonesia and Malaysia. And Elay Technologies went to them and said, hey, we could blow your forest fires out. And Malaysia went for it. Malaysia ponied up a never-disclosed amount of money and hired Elay Technologies to use their big wind technology to blow out the forest fires. They did indeed whoop up what in that part of the world is called a cyclone and blow out the forest fires. It also flattened an awful lot of villages and left people homeless. Another one of those, oops, didn't see that coming.
Yeah, your history of the early rainmakers, a lot of them seem to be run out of town for being too successful.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of my favorite stories. 1919, San Diego, California. Several years of drought. They hire a rainmaker named Hatfield. Hatfield sets up his equipment, and within 24 hours, the clear sky is a pouring gusher of rain, so much so that creeks overflow their banks, several dams are broken, and several people are killed. The city is irate at this and ran him out of town without paying him. And this is we may be seeing this in China right this very moment. I know you just bridged me over into an entirely different subject, but I think this is one that proves the veracity of what I'm saying. You may heard, what was it, a week or two ago, there was a major press conference at the Olympic Village in Beijing where the head of the Weather Modification Bureau announced to the world that she still is keeping her promise that it will not rain on opening day for the Summer Olympics.
Wow.
And went on at great length about how she could make this promise. The Chinese government has 37,000 people working on weather management. They are spending
Wow.
over $40 million a year on developing this technology. Now, mostly what they're doing is hail suppression, fog dispersal from airports, and precipitation enhancement. And hail suppression and precipitation enhancement go hand in hand because they both basically are cloud seeding. You know, if hail falls, it can destroy crops, and every year wipes out billions of dollars in crops.
So how did they do the hail part? What technology?
Well, the hail suppression is they go into a cloud, into a front that looks like it's about to develop into hail, and they seed it and force it to rain before it forms the hail. Now, for opening day, it's the exact opposite problem: how to prevent it from raining instead of making it rain. And the Chinese tipped their hat to the Russians and admitted that the Russians are way ahead of them on this technology. The Russians have been using this for like 20 or so years to keep it from raining on the May Day parade.
Really?
And Chernobyl, there was a storm front east of Chernobyl, and there were radioactive rains marching on Moscow, and they stopped them. Now, the Chinese have been aggressively doing weather maintenance for about 10 or more years now. Again, they're spending $40 million a year, have 37,000 people employed full time in this.
Okay, so now I think we should go into the latest legislation which creates a weather bureau here in the United States for weather modification. You know, you want to describe what's happening with that?
Right. Actually, that is dead legislation at this point. That was the Weather Modification Research and Technology Transfer Authorization Act of 2005. It came out of committee, went on to the Senate calendar, and then never came up for a vote. And I believe it was killed because there were some very deep insiders who did not want this to come out. And there was a lot of local opposition. There was a lot of grassroots opposition to it, too. And between the insider opposition to the grassroots, that's what killed it. Now, what the Act would have done is create a Weather Modification Advisory Board. Now, this is not a new thing. Prior to the U.S. becoming signatory to the EnMod Convention, which is, again, the Convention on the Prohibition of Military or any other hostile use of environmental modification techniques. The U.S. became signatory to that in 1978. And prior to that, in 1976, there was a Weather Modification Advisory Board created whose purpose was to round up everything known about weather modification, put it into a report, and give it to Congress, which they did. And that report is available today from any U.S. government printing office. I used it extensively in writing my first book, HAARP, The Ultimate Weapon of the Conspiracy, in which they had laid out what the state of the art of weather modification was up to 1976.